Hey, I'm Alex Rackel from Board Game Co., and these are the games entering my collection for the month of June. If you missed it, this is a new series on the channel. This is the second one in the series, where in addition to the games leaving my collection, which is its own video, every month I'll also be doing a quick video on the games that are entering my collection, and just how I feel about them, because some of them I'm like, this is entering my collection, and others are like, this is getting a temporary spot on the shelf while I still evaluate how I feel about it, but it's still going here as opposed to moving onwards. Either way, I'm going to go through all of those, and I will say I usually will start these off by talking about the games that left my collection in the last video, the games leaving the collection video. To that end, this month's game leaving the collection video had 10 games leaving. There were 6 that never really entered, and that means a game that I played, I reviewed, and then I decided it's not for me, I don't need it. It might be a great game, but for whatever reason, I don't think I need it in my collection. So 6 games never really entered my collection. But then there were 4 that left my collection. 4 games that I did put on the shelf for various amounts of time, and now they're gone. Those are Ecosystem Savannah and Vienna, which were recent additions. They hadn't been there that long. Vienna had been there a few months, and I kind of liked it, but the tricky part is I like other Stefan Feld games more. I was conflicted to begin with. I do think it's a good game, as always. The best of the best is what I only can make time for, and Stefan Feld has so many better games than Vienna, at least for me. Ecosystem Savannah is one of the Ecosystem series. I've had all of them. I like them all. I think that the card-based system, the way it's structured, there are so many great point optimization games. As much as I enjoy the Ecosystem series, it's not one that is as good as other ones, so it kind of entered for like 6 months-ish, and then eventually we had moved on. Then there were 2 that were older ones. We had Ancient Knowledge, which is a game that I'd had around in my collection for maybe a year and a half, because I had actually had a pre-production copy way back when, so I'd had it for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, played a decent amount. I overall enjoy it, but it's not a forever game for me. And then we have Sheriff Nottingham, which is the oldest game that left. That's been in my collection for like, I don't know, 9 years, 7 years, 8 years, somewhere in a long time frame. It's been around for a very long time. I absolutely adore Sheriff Nottingham. It got to a point where I realized whenever there's an opportunity to play it, I don't play it. And so that one left. And those are the 4 that were leaving my collection. For this week over here, we have 6 games that we're talking about, although it's a little more complicated than that. Because not all those are actually into my collection, although, well, let's talk about it. The first is going to be 10 Days in the USA. 10 Days in the USA, I've been playing the new version of it from the op. I think it's an excellent game. I always liked the original. When the op came out with the new one, I was like, absolutely, I'd love to try it because I already know I like the system. Whether or not it stays is a different conversation, and it is staying because my daughter really likes it, and I'm always happy to play games that my kids like, so 10 Days in the USA is one that is staying for right now, but it is going on the kids collection shelf, which, again, technicalities here, I don't consider that my own collection. I keep games in my kids collection shelf based on what they want to play and what they're interested in, not based on what I'm trying to pull out for my own game group, so I consider it like I have multiple categories. I have my actual collection, I have the games in flux as someone who reviews games, and those are just games that are temporary here until I decide what to do with them, play them, make decisions, and then I have a separate category for my kids collection. I track this all in Notion. I have a separate category for kids collection, so 10 Days in the USA is going to the kids collection. I'm also going to give bonus points to Flowers. Again, not entering my collection, but I've been playing Flowers a lot on Board Game Arena. I like it a lot. It may at one point enter my collection. For right now, it's just getting a special mention because I've been playing it a lot. I don't know if I'm going to bother picking it up though, because I find Board Game Arena games I'm very happy to often play on Board Game Arena. It's the kind of thing that if I saw it at a convention at a reasonable price, I'd probably pick it up for the sake of completion. For right now, it just gets a special mention instead. Which brings us to the actual 4 that are entering my collection, which you may have noticed that we had 4 leaving and 4 being added. That means we're currently static for this month as far as how my collection is adjusting around what's leaving and what's being added to the collection. Although I will say, from the 4 that are being added, 2 of them are kind of in a holding pattern. I don't know how they'll go. The first 2, the ones that are, let's talk about the holding pattern ones first. First of all, we have Nature over here. Nature's going to be coming to you from North Star Games, and they've made Evolution, they've made Oceans, now they're making Nature, the 3rd iteration of that series of basically building out a species, giving them traits, and then trying to survive and eat food, and the food you eat are the points you're gathering across 4 rounds of play, or more with the various modules. You see, the game comes with a bunch of modules. It's a modular pay system. You can go ahead and play, Nature with Flight, or with the events of that are going to, throw meteors at you, or large dinosaurs that are going to make it more violent or vicious or whatever it is, and have larger sized creatures. There's different modules you can mix and match in different ways to give you different gameplay experiences, and I do think it's my favorite version of that system until now. And I said this in a different video, I always hate it when I'm like, the new version is the best. I don't love that because it just creates a cycle of FOMO, and that's why sometimes the new version is not the best, sometimes it is the best. It just depends. In this case, I do think that nature might be the best version of the system. It also does make sense sometimes when the new one's the best because they've had time to iterate, although sometimes they've had time to iterate what they think is better, and it's not always better for the actual player of the game. In the case of nature, though, I think I really like it. Now, I know that Oceans and Evolution are both games that I liked, but didn't stay in my collection. I don't know what's going to happen with nature. I know I like the system, I do, but I also know that I get rid of games that I like on a regular basis because I pick and keep what's actually being played, and the question is whether nature will hit the table enough or not. Will the charm of the modularity keep it more there? Now, I will say, by the way, this is a prototype. By the time you watch this video, the campaign for this probably isn't even up yet. But at the end of the day, I grade the whole entering or leaving my collection, well, I get entering more so, based on when I play the game. When I play the game itself, that's when I'm trying to say, like, hey, if I play it this month, right now, do I want to add it? And in the case of nature, right now I want to add it, but I'm doing so with the knowledge that sometimes games like this don't stay. The optimist in me is adding this, the realist in me expects to see it eventually leave, but we'll see how that fares. Speaking of which, we also have Robinson Crusoe, which you might be like, that's the other one? That's the other one that's not safe? Well, yes, and that's because I played half a game of Robinson Crusoe. I dove into Robinson Crusoe, finally got a learning game, patron reached out, we had a game online, and I, overall enjoyed what we played so far. I'm cataloging it here because in a perfect world, I would wait until I'm more sure about whether it enters my collection or not, but the practical reality is I might play an actual game in 2 weeks, I might play an actual game tomorrow, not tomorrow, I might play an actual game again in 6 months, so I don't know for sure, and the way I can most easily track what I'm making decisions around is when I have something logged as a first play in BG Stats. So in the case of Robinson Crusoe, I enjoyed it enough that I want to keep playing it. So for right now, it moves from unplayed into in my collection, but it's doing so with the knowledge that I haven't yet made a firm decision around how that will play out. So I do need to play it more, and eventually it'll either be leaving my collection or you'll see a dedicated review on it. One of those two things will happen, because I guarantee you, once I get a few plays under my belt, I see no reason not to review it, so you'll hear about this game one way or the other eventually. I just don't know when eventually will be. And then for the two that are entering my collection with a little bit more certainty, we have Jekyll versus Hyde over here, which is a two-player trick-taking game. And the biggest question mark on this as far as longevity just goes down to the fact that I have a lot of small box games, and sometimes I look at them and I'm like, you know what, I'm not playing you, I am playing you, and sometimes games leave. But I really enjoy Jekyll versus Hyde. I've gotten several games of this in already. I find the challenge to be very rewarding, the gameplay to be very quick. Overall, it's a good experience. You knock out a game in 15-20 minutes, and you just go back and forth in this two-player game of one player trying to seek balance, the other player trying to seek a lack of balance, a complete lack of balance, so they can separate into the different personas. Very, very interesting, very good thematic implementation. I love the metal little piece over here. Honestly, if I do get rid of the game, I almost want to put a piece in here and say, missing the metal piece, because I want to keep this regardless. I like the little metal Jekyll versus Hyde. Either way, I like the game for right now, and for right now, it is currently safe, but this one is definitely entering my collection based on playing it this month. And as always, by the way, games enter my collection in June are based on the plays in May. And then lastly, we have Unstoppable. Unstoppable by John D. Clear over here. I really enjoyed this one. Again, I don't know for sure longevity. There's never a guarantee. I tried them best, but I would say I have less hesitancy around this one than I do over Nature or Robinson Crusoe. Nature because I know the past games, Robinson Crusoe because I need to play it more. But in the case of Unstoppable from John D. Clear, this is from the Simply Solo line, I believe, the Solo Hero series. I always make that mistake. Simply Solo is Button Shy, Solo Hero series is Renegade. The Solo Hero series, and I really like the deck building kind of approach. It's very much card crafting, but in a different vein than you might be used to from John D. Clear. And the overall puzzle just has you going against a boss while dealing with various enemies. I'm not completely sold yet because I want to see, like, okay, great, how different do the characters feel? How different do the bosses feel? How different do mixing up the cards feel? Like, and I've gone through some of this, but the sense of difference has not been as present as I want. So right now, the core gameplay I really like, but I kind of really need to see how it feels over more time. So there still is a little bit of uncertainty, and I'll wait for a final game, but as of right now, I definitely enjoy this enough, and the fact that I can play it solo as well makes it an easier game to say, you know what, this will go on the shelf, and we'll see how it fares. And so that's what we have over here. We have 4 games leaving, 4 games entering, again, with asterisks, but ultimately, it doesn't matter. They'll eventually go into leave my collection or not, one way or the other. And that means that this month we are at a 0 change in my collection size. Last month we had a +2, which means over the past 2 months we're now at a +2 collection size. My goal is to maintain that at 0, ideally, because Lord knows I don't play my favorite games enough anyway. Anyway, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.